A quick word before we start. Unforkable is rebranding. The new name of this podcast is Defire. It's an amalgamation of DeFi and FIRE, like the personal finance trend, the FIRE movement. I will continue to interview interesting players and personalities in crypto, but also experiment with different formats. Anyways, if you are already subscribed on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or wherever you listen to this, you don't have to do anything. The only thing that will be changing for you is that the logo is changing over the coming days. So look out for the new DeFi logo when the next episode drops.
And it sounded to me like his friends were getting scammed, like spending thousands of dollars for a JPEG. And I really legitimately thought they were just getting deeper and deeper into a Ponzi scheme or some elaborate scam. And I just couldn't wrap my head around it.
You hold NFTs worth more than $1 million right now.
Yeah, it's really ridiculous. 4 months ago when I first got into NFTs, my entire crypto portfolio was less than 100K.
Hello and welcome to Defire. My name is Jonas, and today on the show we hear the story of Roy, alias Zeneca 33. That's how he is more widely known on crypto Twitter. Roy recently turned full-time NFT trader / investor, and before that he was a professional poker player for 15 years. Usually I try to cut down these episodes to under 1 hour, but Roy had so many fascinating stories about NFTs, poker playing, how to stay mentally healthy, and industry insights to share that I figured, hey, let's just release the whole thing. Please enjoy my conversation about NFTs, investing and more with Roy, alias Zeneca 33. Let's start this thing.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show, Roy.
Thanks for having me.
I stumbled upon you actually on Twitter, and you were sharing some insights about the crazy NFT trading life and that it can be quite taxing. And I think it would be interesting to start with your Twitter persona, Zeneca.
Yeah, I can give you the backstory. I created this Twitter account in, I think, February or March. Before that, I had a previous account that was sort of my personal account. I was a professional poker player before I got into NFTs, so I tweeted about poker and some other things. And I noticed that a lot of people in the NFT space, in the crypto space, were having these either anonymous accounts or pseudonymous accounts for one reason or another. And I guess I thought it would be cool and interesting to try this new personality, or this, not even a new personality, it was still just me, but just this new account. And I tried tweeting about crypto on my old Twitter account, and I hadn't really used Twitter for years, so no one really saw any of the posts. And I just thought, I'm going to start a new account and just follow crypto people, NFT people, and network that way. And yeah, I mean, the name Zeneca, I was just sat down at my computer one day and I was like, what pseudonym can I come up with? And I'm a big fan of Stoicism and the Stoic Seneca and Zen Buddhism, so it just came to mind, this new amalgamation of the two. And then Zeneca was taken, and I was 33 years old at the time, so I made it Zeneca 33, and that's where it came from.
And you have now almost 33,000 followers. So would that be a perfect moment to freeze your follower count once you get there?
Well, maybe we'll go for 333,000.
Okay.
It's it really is ridiculous that I have that many followers right now. I mean, 3 months ago, I think I had less than 500. And I mean, it's such a new account. It's just blown up. And yeah.
It must be the value you're sharing on Twitter. I would love to go into that later, because I'm really bad on Twitter. And you also have your profile picture, as you mentioned, you're pseudonymous, so it doesn't show you. It shows an avatar. And I mean, you own so many NFTs. What made that one that special that you put it in your profile picture?
Sure. So it's an ape from the Bored Ape Yacht Club, which is now one of the most popular NFT projects there is. Basically, before this, I had a different NFT project as an avatar, and funnily enough, it was another ape from a project that launched a month or two before the Bored Ape Yacht Club, called Ape Only. I think maybe not a lot of people know about it. It was before this whole avatar craze, and there was only 1,000 of them, and it just didn't really catch on the same way as the Bored Ape Yacht Club did. But when I first got my ape or apes. I bought 3 around the same time. Part of the reason for buying them was because on Twitter, I just saw all these people with ape avatar profile pictures popping up, talking to each other, networking, following each other. And I sort of sensed this movement happening, this rush towards Twitter profile pictures and community NFTs and avatar projects. And so, because that was a big reason for me buying an ape in the first place, I pretty quickly changed my avatar to an ape, and it's basically been there ever since. The only difference I've made is a couple of weeks ago, I had my friend Jamie create like a back. Oh, he took my ape and put it on like an art blocks background. So now I have a Ecumenopolis is the art blocks project that's the background of my avatar.
So you have a combination in the profile picture.
Yeah, I mean, I love art blocks and I love the Bored Ape Yacht Club, so it's really perfect.
I think we have to dive a little bit deeper into those projects afterwards. So a lot of crazy stuff actually happened today. So maybe we
Yeah,
can dive into that. Visa bought CryptoPunk, for
yeah.
instance. That's
I woke
big.
up to that news. That was huge. Obviously, more and more people have been, looking at NFTs and thinking about the space. And yeah, just to have Visa, this massive corporation, essentially buying a CryptoPunk, any NFT really, but a CryptoPunk specifically is, I mean, in one sense, it's a stamp of approval, seal of approval, saying, hey, we realize there's value here and we want to announce that to the world. But I mean, in another sense, the whole crypto and NFT movement is sort of against what Visa and these traditional finance institutions are all about, where they're acting as the middlemen, where they're taking significant percentages off our transaction fees and where they're charging high interest rates and stuff. So yeah, there's a bit of conflict in the community about whether this is a good thing or not, but I think it's indisputable that it's put a lot of attention and media on NFTs specifically. And just today, we've seen the floor price of CryptoPunks go up. Last I checked, 30 or 40%. And I mean, it was a 50 ETH floor yesterday. Now it was 65, 70 ETH. And this, I mean, that's significant money. And sort of everything in the entire space seems to be going up accordingly. And I think that's sort of what happens when a project as large as the CryptoPunks has such a significant amount of money pumped into it. I think in the NFT space, most of the people who are selling CryptoPunks now, they've been in the space for ages, and they're not the type of people who are just going to take this ETH, turn it into fiat, and withdraw it, or even just sit on ETH. They're so invested in the space that they're going to put it into other NFT projects, and so the money just flows throughout the ecosystem. So it really is big news, and it's good for anyone that's currently in the NFT space. And if you're not, it's still, I mean, it's still so early that, I mean, it's still a good time to get in, I think.
Yeah, and CryptoPunk is one of the earliest. Would you say is even the earliest project that is out there, or is it just? Why would you say has CryptoPunk this special standing in the NFT community or in the crypto community?
Uh, it's not the first NFT project. There are some earlier projects, and they have lately been getting a lot more attention, and their prices have been going up. But it's sort of the first project that went really big and mainstream, and this first avatar project where people started using these CryptoPunks as status symbols and as identities, and it sort of became a culture in and of itself, and it's just thought of as like a pivotal point in the NFT timeline. It was like the first project that really gained traction. Yes, there might have been some previous projects, but they were sort of lost and forgotten about, and they're only being dug up like lately in the last several months. Whereas CryptoPunks, over the last 12, 18 months, even when they were first released, some people at least, saw the value in them, and like it's a proof of concept, really. Is what they are. Everything that we look at in the NFT space now probably owes something to the CryptoPunks.
And you also just today or yesterday tweeted something, and you basically showed this crazy spreadsheet of all your NFTs. I assume, like what you're personally holding.
No, that's actually I tweet out every day a spreadsheet of, well, two usually. One is just all the projects that I'm tracking, so it's the floor price of CryptoPunks, Bored Ape Yacht Club, all these avatar projects, some generative art projects, and then the other one is just art blocks specifically. And So it's not necessarily what I'm holding. I do own a lot of the things that I put on that spreadsheet, but some of them I don't own. But I put them out there because I know people who follow me are interested in tracking those prices.
All right. And just to remind the people, what exactly is the floor price and the ceiling price? Just for people who might
Of
not be familiar with that term.
CryptoPunks?
No, not the number, just
Oh,
what
the
it exactly
concept. Okay,
means
so
and how you measure it.
yes, of course. So the floor price is basically the if you wanted to buy, say, a CryptoPunk and you went into the secondary market, the floor price is the cheapest available CryptoPunk or the cheapest available NFT of a set collection. I'm looking at it right now. The current lowest priced punk available is 66.6 ETH. So 221,000 US dollars if you wanted to buy one. And then it just obviously goes up from there. Some are going to cost more because they're rarer and have different traits and things like that. But that's generally what we think of as the floor price, and it's a pretty good indicator of what the value of a specific collection is. Obviously, it doesn't tell the whole picture because there's average moving prices, there's the ceiling, and the floor price is just an asking price. Maybe no one's actually going to pay that amount. But for projects that have high activity and uh, generally trade, dozens, if not hundreds of NFTs a day, then it's a pretty good measuring stick for how well a project is doing. And most of the other measurements sort of are correlated to the floor price. The average price will be correlated to the floor price. And the ceiling is a little bit different. The ceiling is sort of the highest sale has ever been of a particular collection. And so, I mean, that's just a different thing, and different collections are going to have different ceilings based on, I guess, how rare the rarest thing in a collection is. So with CryptoPunks, you have aliens, and they're just like extraordinarily rare. I don't know the exact percentage off the top of my head, but there's very, very few of them. And so some of them are selling for like $5 to $10 million, and or if we use ETH, say like 4,000 ETH. And then in the Bored Ape Yacht Club, it's another project where the floor price is really high. It's 25 to 30 ETH at the moment, but because of the way the sort of the traits are laid out and the rarities are, there's no one ape that is going to be so, or like one like handful of apes that are going to be so rare that they're going to fetch thousands of ETH, like, or at least that multiplier of the floor. So the ceiling of the Bored Ape Yacht Club, I think the highest sale has been, it might have been today at around 400, 500 ETH, which is still a lot of money, but it's not millions. Yeah.
Well, yeah, 500 would be.
Yeah, I think it was 1.4 million. Someone said. I didn't actually see it. I was distracted with art block stuff, but yeah, it really is. It's just getting crazy the amounts of money that people are spending on these things.
I think we have to explain what are rarities, etc. How I understand it is, it's like, let's take the example of CryptoPunks. Then some have like glasses, some have a hat, some have like a cigarette, etc. And then people are figuring out how many of those exist. And then with the aliens you mentioned, I think there's around 8 or 12 out of 10,000 different ish CryptoPunks, right? Does that sound
Yeah,
about
something
right?
like that.
Yeah.
Yes, it does. They're extremely rare, and I mean it's like any collectible in the world in history. The rarer a thing is, the higher price is paid on it, and is placed on it rather. And that's for whatever reason, supply and demand, or status symbol, or a bit of both. But yeah, generally the rarer a thing is, the more it'll cost.
And apparently today also someone bought a pixelated image of a rock.
Yeah, so that's another thing that's been happening lately. These things called ether rocks. I have not been following them closely, except that I know that they have been going for ludicrous amounts, like hundreds of ETH. I think that they were like a really old NFT project, and that's part of why they're fetching such crazy prices. But yeah, it's just at a certain point, it's again, it's a status symbol, or it's just like a bragging game. These billionaires saying, "Hey, look, I can spend this much money on a rock," etc.
And I think it's safe to say that the last couple of months, or maybe even the last year, was all about NFTs, right? Could you, for people who are not in the NFT game, who might have heard about CryptoPunks, might have heard about this new thing, NFTs, maybe they have seen the NBA hotshots, but can you paint the picture with numbers, like what has been happening in terms of like price appreciation? like some things you bought, let's say a couple of months ago, you bought them for pennies, and now they are worth a couple of thousands of dollars. Do you have some examples that you would be comfortable sharing?
I can give you the craziest example. I mean, I'll give you two examples. One is the less crazy one, and that's the Bored Ape Yacht Club. So I bought them, I would say, roughly 3 months ago, and I paid 0.5 to 0.7 ETH. ETH, I think, I can't remember. It was probably around 3,000 ish at the time. And now the floor price of those are around 25 to 30 ETH. So that's 50x, let's say, in 3 months on, a non-insignificant investment. That's, if we're talking US dollars, that's, a couple thousand, close to 100,000 now. The other more crazy example is a piece of art called Fidenza. So Fidenza is a project on the Artblocks platform. Artblocks essentially allows artists to release generative art, which is art created by code. So the artist will write some code. When the user goes to the website and mints it or buys a piece, essentially it uses their unique identifier and creates this new piece of art based on the code. And it's just, I could spend an hour talking about art blocks, but essentially they were minted for 0.17, I believe, at the time. And this would have been early June. And the floor today is close to 200 ETH. So, I mean, that's math that,
Wow.
yeah, it's just ludicrous. Earlier today, there was a sale for 1,000 ETH, the highest sale on Artblocks, and it's like 3.5 million for a single Fidenza. And there's 1,000 of them, or 999 if we're being very specific. And yeah, they're just so coveted and, I guess, desired by the community now. They're a mixture of great art, technological, some like amazingness, and status symbol and scarcity now, because there is only 999 compared to, say, 10,000 punks and things like that. I actually had 4, but I sold 3 of them a long time ago. Yeah. Oh well.
Wow. But okay. So these and the apes would be the ones that you had the biggest return so far.
Yes, I would say art blocks in general. So not just the Fidenza. I own 200 to 300 pieces on art blocks. Fidenza is by far the most expensive of those. Most of them are, within the 1 to 10 ETH range, but a lot of them I bought for fractions of an ETH. So that plus the Bored Apes is where I'd say I'd have the most gains.
That's absolutely mind-blowing. And you
It
just
really is.
right now, we had to postpone this interview for a little bit because you were minting again on art blocks some new artworks. And just for people, minting means basically you are creating the artwork. It's the first. Well,
you're paying. You're basically buying the art, but it's not just buying it, because wrapped into the process of buying it is the creation of the art. So the artist has written the code. When you click the mint button, it uses some randomization or pseudo randomization to create the art, like sort of in real time, and that's what you're paying for. So you don't actually know exactly what you're buying. You have some idea of what, like, you can see some sample mints, but you're buying. It's a bit like they always say it's like an Artblocks vending machine or a lottery where you pay some money, press a button, and you don't know exactly what's going to come out, but you have like some idea.
Mm-hmm. And is it without wanting now to go too deep into the details, but I'm really curious, if you mint on art blocks, I mean, I guess the artists before, they must have done thousands or a couple of test runs to see what kind of art comes out. But the rarity, is there also like, is that like statistically, like provable what kind of rarity is out there? Or is it more like a feel? A lot of them are yellow and I have the only one which is purple. So mine must be probably a bit more valuable than the yellow ones. Does it work that way? Or is there more like statistics that you can go through that are provided by the artist, or maybe, crowdsourced by the community?
A bit of both, actually. So the artist will include traits for each mint. So say the color palette, and there'll be a certain percentage chance of 5 different color palettes, and maybe some of them will be more rare than others. And because it's only a certain percentage chance, when say 1,000 are minted, the artist might say 12% are yellow, but maybe only 2% come out yellow, or maybe 25%. They don't actually know, because that's the way luck works and randomization works. But yes, at the end of a collection, when they've all been minted out, there are websites where people analyze these traits and can say, oh, there's only 7 of this color, or there's only 12 with this pattern, or there's 800 that have this, and so that's less rare and more common. And so you can definitely break down the rarities that way and sort of analyze what is rare and what isn't. But a lot of what drives value is not necessarily the statistical rarities, but just aesthetics, because it is art at the end of the day, and what people like and what they see in a certain thing, and what the community sees. It will place higher value on certain traits than others. And so golden rule of art blocks is basically buy what you love and can afford. So if you like something, you wouldn't hate it if the value went down. It's a piece of art you're going to hang on your wall or your digital wall or whatever it may be. Then it's just a good place to start. And yeah.
Mm-hmm. And now you just minted some right now, some other ones.
A project called Rapture. It is a really interesting and exciting project to me. It looks different than most other things in art blocks. Maybe there's some similarities to one other collection, but it's just really cool and amazing. I haven't, as you said, I just minted before we jumped on the call, so I haven't looked through the whole collection, but the ones that I've seen, there's like a really wide diversity in mints. But they all look great. And so that's like the mark of a good collection, is when you can mint out 500 or 1,000 and have them look like they all belong to the same collection, but they're all individually unique and they all look good. So the color palettes work and the layouts work, and it's just a really cool collection. I'm excited to see, I guess, what value the market places on them. And if it places a lot of value, then the ones I minted are going to be worth more, and that'll be great. And if it doesn't and the prices go down, then I'll be looking to buy some, because I place a lot of value on them.
How many did you mint? What is normal for such a mint? Like, I guess it's also
4.
getting crowded. 4.
It is getting crowded, yeah. So, so they have this Dutch auction style now. So, say go back 2 months ago, when, even maybe a month ago, if you wanted to mint something on art blocks, they would say this project is being released on this day. The price is 0.1, and essentially there'd be a huge gas war. So what that means is that if there's 5,000 people trying to mint this thing, which is only 500 or 1,000 of, then people would increase the gas that they pay, the transaction fee they pay for the Ethereum network. And those who pay the most are essentially going to end up with the piece. And for a piece that costs 0.1, the effective cost might be 0.5, 0.6, where with most of that money going to the miners. Now they've introduced this Dutch auction method where they say the price will start at, say, 2 or 3 ETH, and then every 5 or 10 minutes it will drop. And that way people who can afford or want to pay more can mint at a higher price without the gas war, and the market sort of decides what fair market price is for a certain piece. And so that's what has happened lately, and it has curbed the craziness. Like, there aren't that many people rushing in at the immediate price, but with this drop there was. So 1,000 mints, I got 4. I use multiple wallets, which, I mean, some people do that, some people don't. It's up for debate with how ethical or moral or whatever that is, but I know that many people do it, and I don't necessarily feel too bad about it. And I mean, especially because I'm not really looking to flip. I think there are some people, like opportunists who do that, and especially in the olden days, they would use bots to front run and get lots and lots of mints and then immediately flip them. And anyway, that's a whole other rabbit hole we can get down. But yeah, I minted 4. I'll usually try and mint 1 to 4, depending on the project, how much I like it, how much I can afford at the time, etc.
All right. Hey, and I think it would be interesting to get to know you a little bit better. You mentioned before to me that you are living in Germany and you have an Australian accent. I thought in the podcast British, but no, now it is something different. Yeah. So
yeah, a lot of people say that. Yeah, so I'm living in Germany. I'm born in Australia and I grew up in Australia. Me and my partner, we moved to Germany 2 and a bit years ago because she got a job offer over here, basically, and we thought it would be cool to live in Europe and travel and see some more of Europe because it's so difficult to travel to from Australia. So yeah, that's how we ended up here in Munich. And we intend to be here for another 2 or 3 years and then go back to Australia. Before NFTs and before coming here, I was a professional poker player. So I did that for basically 15 years. I went high school. I sort of started playing in my last year of high school and then went to university and was very much into poker and not at all into my commerce degree, which is, accounting and law and that kind of stuff, which 18-year-old who's can, play online poker and make decent money, it's very difficult to get them to pay attention to university. So after 6 months, I dropped out and decided to do poker full time. And yeah, I basically did that for 15 years. And I mean, there's a lot of story in those years, but it basically took me to getting into crypto and NFTs. I think a lot of people from the poker world found themselves into the crypto world just because it's just a natural transition, I think, for many reasons.
Yeah, I heard that too. I wonder why that is. I've never played poker. I barely can play normally. But I heard back in the days it was kind of like when the online poker started, it was easier. And nowadays it would be much harder to make a living playing poker. And
Yeah.
It really came just to almost like playing chess where people are using probably programs and with statistics, etc. And it's got much more competitive. Would you say that's the gist of the poker playing last 5 years? It's
Pretty much,
compressed.
yeah. I would say, when I first got into it, 2005, 2006, even up to 2010, 12, it was really like, I don't want to say easy to make money, but easier. And the games were softer and there was less of these bots and um, computer programs that were not just playing for people, as some people use now. People use bots to play, but assisting people, like the software that people could use to analyze their own game and get poker theory in general back in 2005 is just it's so different to what's capable now. And now you can, put hands and scenarios into a program and it'll basically tell you exactly how you should play in a game theoretically optimized way in these situations and that situation. And now it's sort of like this ongoing battle between humans and bots and I guess now like the websites as well, or the poker platforms and the casinos to fight these bots and find ways to make the game unbeatable by bots or more interesting. And they do that by new variations of poker and other things. But yeah, I sort of played most of my career online up until 2016 or so, where they banned it in Australia effectively. And then I played live poker for a few years and then did a little more online when we moved to Germany. But yeah, transitioned into crypto and haven't really looked back, and I don't miss it really.
That's so interesting. So you never, in quote, held a real job after high school.
No,
You've been making
no.
money online since ever.
Pretty much, yeah.
And how?
I mean, that's
How
part of
would
why
you?
the transition to crypto was so easy, because I didn't have to quit a real job. I didn't have to go to work every day. I just decided one day, hey, I'm going to direct all my attention, instead of playing poker and figuring out poker, I'm just going to spend some time on crypto. And yeah.
How much money could you do playing poker back in the days? I mean, I guess an 18-year-old person, like out of college,
I
was
could
it
have
super?
made millions, really. Like, it was so easy back then. And I mean, if I like put my head down, studied, played, and didn't waste all my money and didn't go traveling and drinking every day and partying and all that kind of stuff, it would have been not difficult to make literally millions of dollars when I was 18 to 23, 25. But I was lazy and I didn't do any of those things. I mean, I did it to some extent and made decent to good money, but yeah, I mean, there was plenty of money to be made, and many people did make tons and tons of money and continue to make tons and tons of money at poker. It's just more difficult now. Yeah.
Okay. And how would you describe your job now?
Hmm.
What are you doing day in, day out? I mean, if somebody asks you who might not be familiar with the crypto world at all, what do you say? If like you go to Germany, you walk through the street and you get to know a German person, to say, "What are you doing for your living, good sir?"
Nice accent. I mean, the basic answer I tell people is I trade cryptocurrency. Like, if I'm getting a haircut, or like, the doctors and they ask what you do, I don't want to explain NFTs and all
Hmm.
that. And I think just leaving it at crypto is a really nice high level answer. But if it's, an old friend that I'm catching up with and haven't seen in a while, or family member that I haven't spoken to in a while, then it's a bit harder to explain. I mean, I don't even know myself really what my job title would be. It's some weird amalgamation of uh, art dealer, not dealer, but like art buyer and seller, art trader, uh, NFT trader, although it's less trading now and more just holding. And I mean, I have my newsletter, I have my podcast, so I do create content as well. And I guess that's sort of what I want to do a bit more of now. And yeah, the last couple of months has been a lot of buying and selling NFTs, but I don't really want to keep doing that. It's just not the most healthy, balanced life.
Mm. And you're also very successful at it. Obviously, I read today in your tweet that you crossed the two coma club, so to say,
Yeah,
the seven figures
yeah, it's
worth of NFTs. So you hold NFTs worth more than $1 million right now.
yeah, it's really ridiculous. It's still I struggle to wrap my head around it. Um, like I actually calculated my portfolio today for the first time in a month or 6 weeks, and it just doesn't feel real yet.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
can
because
imagine.
like 4 months ago when I first got into NFTs, my entire crypto portfolio was less than 100K, and
Hmm.
uh, I had some NFTs, I had some Ethereum, I had some Bitcoin, I had some altcoins, I had some shitcoins, I had all sorts of stuff, and yeah, I mean, it was doing okay, but ever since getting into NFTs and having the whole NFT space explode, and I guess I was early enough. I mean, we still are early, but yeah, the amount of money and new people coming into the space who are willing to pay 10x, 50x, 100x what I paid for things a few months ago has just really increased the value of my holdings more than my wildest imaginations, even a few months ago.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, when I hear this, I think, man, I missed the train totally on that one.
A lot of
And
people
yeah.
sort of did because they saw it happening and maybe didn't dedicate the time and brain space into understanding it, and maybe they thought it was a fad and was going to come crashing down. And it very well may have. There was no way of knowing that this is where it would have led to. But yeah, I don't think you've missed the train. I don't think anyone has missed the train. I think we're very early still. Like in the grand scheme of things, I think NFTs are going to change everything in the world. So, and it hasn't really started.
I mean, NFT is such a broad term as well, right? I
Mm,
mean, it could mean basically anything. But I have one idea that I came across
mm,
today, which was basically saying something along the line of so if I was a young person with less than 100 ETH trying to make it in crypto, I'd flip NFTs. It needs relatively low capital requirements with high chance of multiples. And when you're young, you're literally constantly thinking about what's cool. So you have like a good asymmetric opportunity and edge. What do you think about that? Is that basically what you did? Have you always known what is cool, what is going to be cool in the future?
mm.
Is that like a trait
Was,
that you need
was
as an NFT trader?
was that quote by GCR?
That was by his name is Danger.
No,
I don't even know him so well, but
I
I
read
actually
something about that. Maybe the same thing or something very similar. Anyway, that is. I don't really think that's like I haven't always been at the forefront of what's cool, and I missed the initial crypto wave for a while, and I do agree that it is if you're young and you have less than 100 ETH, if you have less than one ETH, I mean, even if you have nothing, you can still start in NFTs and you can make, like, if you hustle and try hard and take advantage of the opportunities that are around, you can make good money just because it is so early and there's so much money flowing around that it's like the opportunities are crazy. If you have nothing, that people are giving away NFTs on Twitter and in Discord, and there's raffles, and you can get your start that way. And yeah, if you do some research and find projects where there's a lot of hype, and that maybe if you understand how to mint and get in on mint day, maybe you can flip for 2x, 3x, 4x in the right projects. Obviously, it's high risk, and that's why it's recommended for those who are younger and maybe can afford to take the risk and don't have families and children and dependents and aren't leaving a real job, quote unquote. But yeah, I would say that the opportunities to multiply your money is higher, and it's easier to do in NFTs at the moment than honestly maybe any other area in life, just in terms of the risk reward ratio. Obviously, with crazy rewards that are in the NFT space and the high multiples that you can 10x your money, there is going to be high risk. You just can't have that without risk. But it feels to me like the risk is relatively low compared to the upside. So, and the upside seems so big at the moment just because of how early we still are and how seismic the shift is going to be in the NFT space and in the world, really, in my opinion.
And one of the risks, I think, one I can see, and I would like to hear your take on that, is that as it is a non-fungible token, that you have like this liquidity problem that you might have seven figures now, but if you want to sell it, I mean, it would take a long time to get rid of that. Is that correct, or what is your experience with selling the NFTs? How quick does that go? And
So at the moment, it goes very well. I think if I wanted to sell my entire portfolio, I could probably do it in 24 hours.
wow.
So, but that's because the market is so hot. That's because there is so much demand and so many people wanting in right now. It is difficult to say what will happen when, well, it may not be that difficult to say, but when the market cools off, when there aren't all these new people wanting to get into the space and spend big money, perhaps there is this liquidity crisis where there aren't enough buyers and things crash a lot really hard. And all of a sudden, something that on paper was worth $100,000 or 50 ETH, 30 ETH actually now, you might be struggling to sell it for 20% of that. And we haven't really properly lived through that yet. I mean, there was a market correction and crash in February, March, but the market was a lot younger then than it is now. We have so many more people in the space now that, yeah, it's hard to say what will happen. I don't think that, I don't see there being an issue with liquidity during a normal market and during like a hot market. I think it's during the bear markets that's where it's going to struggle. But a big part of my strategy and approach to NFTs is most of the things that I buy and have significant holdings in are things that I'm happy to hold for several years if need be. So I'm not necessarily worried about prices crashing because I believe that there's a good team developing the project behind the NFT, or because I think that the art has provenance on the blockchain and eventually, the whole space will blow up enough that people will value it, maybe not in 1 year, if we go in bear market, but 5 years from now, they'll look back and say, hey, that actually is really, really cool. And some of the stuff, if it goes to zero, I'm still happy to own it because I just like it.
Mhm.
Yeah, but the liquidity thing, it can be tricky. Like if you really need liquidity in a pinch, you obviously can't just go on Uniswap and swap coins like you can with traditional crypto. You do have to list every individual item for sale, and someone has to come along who wants to buy your specific item. But yeah, I think the market is, as it grows and matures and gets more people invested, the liquidity issue, if we want to call it an issue, is just going to get better and more manageable because there are going to be enough people willing to buy most NFTs. Not all. Some are going to probably crash to zero. That's for sure.
Mm. And how did you, like what's the origin story? Was there like a moment when it made click, like NFTs, that's the next big thing, or was it like more opportunistic, or was that something like that was spoke to you that maybe you had collectibles in the past, or when did you realize that that's going to be huge? Because I missed it. I mean, I've seen that it's going to happen, and I even knew about art blocks, I knew about all this stuff, but just for me to literally put in like thousands of worth of dollars was always like like I can't really do that. Maybe that's the poker playing as well, where
Maybe,
you
yeah. I
take
think,
risks.
yeah, I think poker players in general are more able, willing, accepting to take calculated risks. And I think part of being a poker player, you have to have like a disassociation from money and think of money as like a tool of your trade rather than the ends or whatever you want to call it. But so my origin story, I guess, for NFTs was around February. I think it was. I had my friend Jamie, the co-host of my podcast. I guess anyway. He, we chat most days, and he was telling me about how he had some poker friends who were into NFTs, and he asked me, "Do I know what a hash mask is?" And I was like, "No." And then he started telling me a bit about them, and it sounded to me like his friends were getting scammed, like spending thousands of dollars for a JPEG. And I really legitimately thought they were just getting deeper and deeper into a Ponzi scheme or some elaborate scam, and I just couldn't wrap my head around it. But after a couple of weeks of this, maybe a month, I realized, these are smart people. I know that they've been very successful in poker and in other areas of life. Maybe I should spend some more time figuring out what's going on. And so I read some articles, I think one specifically by Packy McCormick, Packy M. He writes a Substack called Not Boring, and he had an article called Power to the Person or Power to the People. And it's sort of about the creator economy and how NFTs can change all that and will change all that. And that really resonated to me. And it made me realize, hey, this is not a scam. There's real tech here. Uh, and I sort of got into the space a little bit then. I was still into poker a little bit, and I was still getting into traditional crypto, and I like the idea of altcoins and all that kind of stuff. And I was really just exploring all avenues. So maybe I got a handful of NFTs, but nothing crazy. And I mean, the NFT market back then wasn't going crazy either. So you buy some stuff, and the price doesn't really go up or down over a few weeks. It's not really interesting or exciting. And then maybe around April is when it started really picking up momentum again, April, May. And, I had a few things and they were going up in value. And yeah, I mean, there wasn't really a moment where I said, hey, NFTs are the future and that's where I'm going to dedicate everything. I just sort of naturally, I guess, maybe with the traditional crypto market crashing, there was not much happening there, not much excitement for a couple of months. And I was still not wanting to go back to poker. So I was like, what's going on in crypto? And NFTs, I guess, is just where cool people were hanging out and chatting about things and fun stuff was happening. And yeah, the Bored Ape Yacht Club, I started hearing about them on Twitter and everyone was talking about them. And I bought some apes. And honestly, the rest is history.
Let's go into the Bored Ape Yacht Club for a moment. I think that's super interesting as well because, and correct me if I'm wrong, how I understand it, what I heard about them was, well, we already talked about CryptoPunks, and that was the first kind of like avatar project where people started to using the CryptoPunks on Twitter and on social media as a profile picture. But obviously, as it was one of the first ones and one of the most well-known ones, a lot of people were priced out. And then suddenly there was like this new project, which was quite similar, around the same amount, around 10,000-ish, and different traits and really a different look and feel though, like these apes, a little bit edgy, etc. And the community formed around that project. And they got super valuable overnight as well. And I think what I heard is that the CryptoPunks people were not so happy about that in the beginning. Is that more or less right? Or I hand the word to you. You know the story the best.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. I think it wasn't overnight that they became successful and valuable. So they launched, I don't remember the exact date. I want to say the end of March. And they didn't actually sell out for like a week. So they sold out maybe a few hundred, and then they just sort of was dormant for a week. And then one night, crypto Twitter started buying them and talking about them, and everyone started aping in. And that's sort of when they really took off. But maybe for a month, the floor price didn't really go crazy. It was sort of in this zero point 0.2 to 0.6 range for a lot of it. And so that's still sort of affordable for people to get into. But this was when I guess people were really embracing the community aspect, changing their Twitter profiles. The community was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I'd say around this time is when a lot of people who had been in the space for years and maybe had punks and punk avatars, they weren't necessarily hating on the apes or the project, but they may have been skeptical that there was going to be long-term value, and it could have just been a bubble or a phase or just a project that died down, because we saw with hash masks that value went crazy and then came crashing down. And there were Avatars, previous Avatar project, that didn't really take off in the same way. There had been these phases and these NFT projects that almost like had bubbles burst, where prices went up and then came crashing down. And obviously the apes were different, but I don't think it's wrong or was wrong for the punks to be like skeptical of their success or the chances of them being successful. But yeah, as you say, a lot of people newer to the NFT space wanted some sort of avatar NFT like the punks had, and they were priced out because basically for all of this year, it was somewhere between 30 and 100,000 plus to get a punk. Whereas, for a few hundred to a few thousand, you could have gotten an ape for a long, long time. So yeah, it sort of created this community out of newer people to the space. And then sort of later on is when a lot of punks and OGs in the space started buying in because they saw what was actually happening and how strong the community was getting and how big the space as a whole was getting and how successful the apes were being and going to be and were continuing to be. Yeah, and one, I guess, an important distinction is that with the Bored Ape Yacht Club, when you minted the NFT, you were given full commercial rights to the NFT and your ape in a way that with the CryptoPunks and Lava Labs, you were not. So people who minted apes were able to create artwork out of their ape, and if they wanted to, they can and have been able to now sort of like create comic strips using their ape and other apes they've gotten the rights to and things like that in a way that isn't really possible with punks. You need to get, I think, Lava Labs permission to do that with punks. And if you do it without it, they can send you a DMCA notice to, I guess, stop doing what you're doing. So yeah, that was it. It wasn't the first time that an NFT project had given full commercial rights, but it's the first time, I guess, that such a large community has formed around it. And part of that is because the team behind the project created it with the community in mind. They literally call it a club in the name, and they had this thing called a roadmap, which is very common now. All the projects have one, but it was somewhat rare back then. And they basically said, so we're going to not just sell out this NFT project and then leave and you guys can do what you want. They were like, we're going to add and create value to the community and in various ways, and they've continued to deliver on that promise and deliver on their roadmap, and that has just sort of strengthened everyone's view of them and the value of the community and the project. And it really has gotten to ridiculous points, but at the same time, it's hard to imagine prices dropping. So I think everyone in a bubble says probably the same thing. I can't imagine prices dropping, but yeah, I'll go on record and say that it's hard to imagine prices coming crashing down. At least for the apes, let's say that.
For are the other ones? You mean like in general, or are the other ones than apes in the yacht club? Or no, yacht club
No.
are only apes, right?
I mean, there are only apes. They airdropped dogs as well, so it's called the Bored Ape Kennel Club, which is basically the same. If you had an ape, you got a dog for free. But yeah, their prices are basically correlated. So I think the apes, in terms of NFTs, I don't think their prices are going to come crashing down just because there's only 10,000 of them. The supply is, there are over 5,000 unique owners. So most people who have one, they don't want to sell their just one. So the availability for someone new to enter the club is getting more and more difficult. But there are dozens, hundreds of other NFT projects that are basically copying what the apes did and trying to find that same success. And of those, some have been successful, and I think some of those prices will come crashing down. And I think some will not be successful. Some will be, but that's a lot more risky and precarious market than I would really consider the apes sort of like a blue chip NFT, similar to the punks and a few others.
Okay, so how do you know it's a blue chip? It's like a historic value, or just the community is so strong and will endure? Or do you have like a mental model that you apply to NFT projects where you say, like for instance, I don't know, the Bitcoiners have the mental model of, hey, it can be gold and the gold market cap is, I don't know, 10 trillion. So we have at least the potential to go to 10 trillion. Do you have some ideas that you can apply when you look at NFT projects that you use to make comparisons?
I don't have like a specific model, but I think age is one of them. So, and time is weird in the NFT space. So, Bored Apes have been around for say 6 months, which in traditional finance and even maybe in traditional crypto, 6 months is not that long. But I think in NFT time, it is. It's a significant amount of time, and for them to have survived this long and grown such a strong community, I think has given them what I would say is blue chip status. That said, I can't really think of anything less than 6 months that has elevated to that level. So they're sort of the exception. The other things I think of as, I guess, blue chip NFTs are the punks. They've been around for years and had this value placed in them. Zed Run, who have this horse racing game, they have a set of Genesis horses, which they've been around as a company and a platform for 2+ years, I think. Maybe sort of like Sandbox, which is a company creating a metaverse where they sell land, and they've been building for years. Crypto voxels, they've had land for years, and things that, yeah, I guess probably the biggest consideration is time, and if value has been placed on the project for all of this time, then it seems likely that it's going to continue that way into the future. It's not like a lot of these things aren't a situation where a new project can come along with better tech and just completely demolish the like survivability of a project just because like the community is there, and we're not just going to jump ship to the next hot thing. And like you see what's happening with all these new projects that are popping up, and some of them are having new mechanics and new tech, and they're not really overtaking the apes or becoming better than them. They're just sort of different, and a lot of apes will buy those projects as well, but still consider apes their OG. And I think if anything, apes and punks the OG. I think if anything, all these new projects are just sort of elevating the original ones to new heights, and we're seeing that with the prices accordingly.
But it seems to be such a cultural thing. I mean, when we talk about the Bored Ape Club, they were basically, or how I understood it, is almost a little bit the counterculture against CryptoPunk. You must be so rich that you have that you kind of outprice. Couldn't that the same thing happens that, like, let's say a new generation comes online, they obviously they also cannot afford now a Bored Ape. They will just start something new, and if enough people have this as a profile picture, then you almost look old probably if you have an ape.
Yeah, no, it'll definitely happen. And we're seeing it happen. Say the Gutter Cat Gang, that's another project, and they've got a floor of several ETH now, but they had a floor less than 1 ETH for a long time. Now they're becoming less accessible, and new projects are launching. But I don't think that this is going to hurt the apes and overtake them in terms of floor price. Just like in the same way that the apes didn't overtake the punks, and it didn't hurt the punks to have the apes be so successful. Like the punk floor price was 15 to 20 ETH, now it's close to 70. Ape floor price keeps going up, punk floor price keeps going up. If a new project comes along and it keeps going up, then I think more money will flow towards apes and punks. So it's sort of, yeah, I don't see a new project coming along and being so successful that it takes money away from the apes. I think it'll add to the apes and the punks.
Oh, okay. It's also it's kind of validating the model also of the
Yes, exactly.
avatar. Yeah.
Yep.
And I think avatar projects like the apes and the punks, etc., was one thing. You mentioned earlier the generative art project, art blocks.
Yeah.
So that's really more towards, I would say, art. It's about the visuals. It's about maybe the provenance of the artist. The artist has a name, is already somebody in the space. And what else is there? What kind of NFTs are out there?
So a big one that I think we're seeing some of and going to see more of is gaming NFTs. So people spend billions, maybe trillions of dollars a year is the worldwide gaming industry, and they'll buy games, they'll pay for their skins and weapons and upgrades and all sorts of stuff, and they have no real ownership over these items. And with NFTs, we have the ability to give people ownership over these items, so they can resell them, so they can take them from one game to another game, which is technology that we will get one day. I mean, we sort of already have it. And if you have a really cool item in one game or metaverse, you can take it elsewhere in a way that you can't if you have a really cool thing in Fortnite. You can't take it to Call of Duty or World of Warcraft or whatever big game you want to take it to. And so, I mean, that's one aspect of gaming NFTs, just having ownership over your items, your cosmetics. But we're seeing with, say, Axie Infinity and Zedrun, this sort of play to earn aspect where people can play and earn in-game currency that's real-world currency as well. And the more they play, the more currency they can earn and translate that into like essentially a job. And we're seeing that. I mean, there's massive communities in the Philippines and other countries where, maybe it may not be worth it in a lot of Western countries to play 8 hours a day for $25 US. But in the Philippines, that is a significant amount of money and can really elevate people out of poverty even, or just to a new level of financial independence. And it's possible because of these play to earn mechanics and because there's someone somewhere in the world willing to pay them for this video game asset or this good that they're creating out of their work and time. Yeah.
No, that's I don't know how to feel about that, because like gaming is about relaxing and kind of spending your time and wasting time, right? And then you have people in the Philippines basically working to play. But what is the value creation there? I mean, it's a little bit dystopian to think that there's people like almost like in sweatshops playing a game, not enjoying it, but just making a living playing a virtual game. How do you feel about that? I mean, obviously that's not that's a specific case. It has nothing
Mm.
to do with the general NFT space. But I think that could almost be something out of Black Mirror.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're anywhere close to that point yet. We could see a world, I guess, where that becomes a reality. Um, I mean, at the moment, it's like the amount of money that people are able to earn and that are earning playing these games is. I mean, and again, no one is forcing them to play the games. It's like the opportunity is there. If they want to, they can play and earn this amount of money. And yes, I can understand that there is a timeline in the future where it becomes dystopian. But I think in a world where that happens, we'll probably have a lot more worse problems. But it's hard to say whether this will cause that or that will cause this. But yeah, I mean, you're right. The gaming is meant to be fun and relaxing and all that. But I would prefer to play a video game for my living than sit in an office behind a desk, doing data entry or something like that. For me, it was more fun. I think a lot of people would be more fun. Like I played poker for 15 years. It was a lot of people said, "Hey, you have the best job in the world." Towards the end, even in the middle of it, it was like a grind. It wasn't necessarily fun, but I still realized it's better than almost any other job I could imagine. So yeah, gaming is meant to be fun, and I think it still is. But yeah, some people also enjoy the grind of games. Like there's people who play Pokemon Go, for example, and they'll play 12 hours a day doing certain tasks, quests, and they're not getting any financial gain. They just do it because they enjoy it, or they like the rewards and being best and top of a leaderboard and getting
Mm.
experience and that kind of stuff. And yeah, I mean, I think there is a line that is blurred. It's a lot of it is going to be figured out as we go along. I mean, this is all new territory for us, but I think the opportunities and the tech is there to allow for fascinating, interesting like situations, I guess, for all.
Hmm. Oh, definitely. Plus, that's nothing new, right? I think in World of Warcraft, they also had like this gold, etc. And there were people playing and selling their avatars.
Yeah, exactly.
Just then, you didn't really have it. You didn't really own it, so that was even worse because then the game company would just shut down your account and
Exactly. Yeah, you
your
had to go on eBay and do like
uh-huh.
shady deals and sell your account, and then you had to trust the other person that they'd all that. And now you can do it all on blockchain in a trustless manner.
Yeah. And you mentioned earlier that you dabbled in some other, like some altcoins, etc. And I just wonder, as NFTs are not exclusive to Ethereum, but Ethereum is where all the action is going on. Every project we mentioned so far in the podcast is running on Ethereum, the Ethereum blockchain. But there's obviously other blockchains, and they also have notable NFT projects like the Flow blockchain has NBA hotshots, and Tezos has Hick and Nunk, which is also like
Hmm.
a big platform where artists are minting NFTs and selling NFTs. I don't know if you're aware of other ones, and like, are they relevant for you in your day to day life, or are they just like not worthy to spend time there, basically?
No, they're definitely relevant. I wish I had more time, basically, story of my life, to dedicate to learning more and understanding more of these other blockchains and their platforms. The one that I want to get into the most and have not really is Solana, because I think that they're doing some really interesting things as a whole. Like I'm a big fan of Solana. I own Sol. That's one of the few altcoins, if you want to call them an altcoin, that I own. And I know that they're doing great stuff with NFTs, things that are not really possible on Ethereum because of the high transaction amounts that they can do in a second and low costs and whatnot. Um, there's a game called Star Atlas that it's literally been on my to-do list to investigate and figure out how to buy and what to buy for months. And I haven't checked now. It's probably 50x, but you can't be upset at missed opportunities in the NFT space as long as you're working and taking advantage of some, because there'll always be something else that you could have done. And Tezos and Hick, and I can never pronounce it properly.
Hick and Nunk, I
Hick
think.
and Nunk, yeah. That I've been on there for a while. Some of my favorite artists have dropped their work on there, so I really do like it. I think the platform itself is not great to navigate and for finding art and for reselling art. And I know others have concerns about just NFTs on Tezos themselves and whether they're true NFTs or whether the blockchain is, around to stay. But I haven't dug that deep into it, but I own a bunch from Hen, and I really like some of the art. And there are many artists who drop both on Ethereum and on Tezos, and you can definitely find some great pieces there. And it's often a lot more affordable than on Ethereum, both in terms of the actual pieces and certainly in terms of gas to buy and sell.
Yeah, and since you only buy basically a text file, or no, it's not even it's not true. You only buy like a description that proves the provenance of your artwork, right? I mean, obviously,
for the most part, you're buying a token which has metadata that points to a URL where the actual image is stored, and so you're not actually technically buying the image because it's prohibitively expensive to store, say, a JPEG or PNG file on back to Ethereum. Yeah, I mean, so that's always a concern. What are you actually buying when you're buying an NFT? And a lot of people don't think about it, and I think that they should think about it. And that's why certain projects, I think, will always be more valuable where all of the art is stored on chain. Different people have different definitions of what on chain is and what they think is good enough for that. But yeah, it's definitely worth considering. As one of the things I like most about, or like a lot about art blocks, is that all of the code that generates the art is stored on chain, and essentially, as long as like art blocks can disappear, and as long as the Ethereum blockchain is around, you still have access to your art one way or another. This is slight simplification
because you could basically create it in the moment again with the same input.
Yes, exactly, and people are creating community platforms to be able to view your art, so you don't need to depend on art blocks. There's a couple of exceptions. Sometimes they're dependent on a certain JavaScript library or something like that, but those themselves are so widespread and decentralized, and they're in like the GitHub repository and the Arctic, and like they're really, really well secured. And for some people that's not enough, but for me it is. That art blocks can disappear. It has crashed sometimes. I think back in the early days they had a mint, and this whole site basically went down, and people had paid for their art, and they were like freaking out a bit, and someone on the team managed to create this new site for people to view their art that wasn't art blocks. It was just like, hey, you've bought it, you have the token, the code is on the blockchain. Because of that, you can see your art here. And I think that that's really, really cool. It's like it probably will live for hundreds of years.
Do you have a system to save the image somewhere else as well? Like it's pointing to a URL, but if that URL doesn't point, if there's a 404 there, what are you going to do? Do you have a system in place for that? Is there like a best practice that you would recommend?
That's a good point. I don't really have a system in place. I don't know of a best practice. I know a lot of the places that these NFTs point to where the images are stored are the IPFS, which is, I don't actually know what it stands for off the top of my head, but basically
interplanetary file system, I think.
Yeah, that sounds right. I wanted to say that, but it almost sounded too futuristic. Interplan. But yeah, it's basically a very like pretty safe, secure, decentralized place, but it's not immune to being taken down or having the node, controlled. And another one is Arweave, which is again a really decentralized place to store data. I'm not savvy enough to know the technicalities of how it works, but for many people that's enough. If your image files are stored in one of those two places, I save on my PC the image files of a lot of my NFTs, not all of them. I don't have a system, but generally if it's something that I really like and I'm going to use just in day to day, if I want to use it in Twitter, if I want to send it to people, I'll store it on my PC, mostly for convenience, just to have it. But yeah, it's not a bad idea to start backing up the images. But I guess the thing is, if the place the NFT is pointing to disappears, then maybe some of the value of the NFT disappears as well. But yeah.
Then you probably couldn't really trade it so well.
Probably not, but at least for your own sake and sanity, to have the image is good to have.
Yeah, I think you should do poems as NFTs. That you could have it all.
Someone has.
Oh, okay.
I think they're called Ether Poems. At least that's one of the projects. But yeah, I remember them being really successful a couple of months ago.
Oh, cool.
It's really cool, and like pixel art is something you can have all on chain because it doesn't cost as much to store, say, 100 pixels as a big image file.
The punks are now on chain, right? I think
they're not. Yeah, I don't know exactly.
They did an upgrade or something.
Yeah, they're, I think, for all intents and purposes on chain, but there are
Mhm.
some purists who would say that they're not technically all on chain.
Once I wanted to do an interview about Hashmask because one of the founders of Hashmask is in quite close
Mm.
to Zurich and Zug. I figured out who it was. He's not officially kind of like known, and he doesn't want to give an interview. So but I went deep there, and what happens is like you start to go down that rabbit hole, and
Mm.
suddenly something happens in you, and you want to own a piece of the NFT. You know, like I think it's
Yeah.
whenever you spend time on researching, you suddenly want to have it. And I was thinking about putting a considerable amount of money in there just to buy some stuff. And
Mm.
then I talked to my to my wife, and she was like, "You can't do that, you know.
Yeah,
Like, uh, it's not just my money; it's also her
of
money."
course.
So
Yeah.
I couldn't do it. And also now I'm happy that I didn't do it because the project dropped.
Yeah.
And something similar happened with Meebits when they started. So it
Mm.
seems to have a really bad nose for NFTs.
Yeah, I think they've both bounced back quite a lot, but can't
Oh,
remember. I don't think they're at their all-time highs, so maybe when you were looking at them, they've still gone down from there. But compared to where they were, say, 2 months ago, they're both up like 3x, something like that.
yeah, because everything is up. But why
Yeah.
would, for instance, hash masks? I mean, they were earlier than the Bored Ape Yacht
Yeah.
Clubs, and they also had like a very interesting community. Well, I don't know
Hmm.
how interesting the community is, but I mean, they were also in New York, and they had a billboard somewhere. And
Yeah.
so, what makes, for instance, this community less vibrant and successful than another community?
I can't say. Like for part of it, well, partially I wasn't really around when hash masks were first released in that whole community. I came in like sort of just after that. Um, yeah, there's sort of this X factor lightning in a bottle thing where you can't necessarily quantify or explain why this project was so successful at this time. It's just, I think with the apes, it was the right project at the right time when enough people were in the space. Maybe hash masks, like they had a lot of them, but the community wasn't as large in terms of pure numbers. Or
Hmm.
maybe people weren't using them as avatars as much. Like a lot of hash masks owners were punks, and they would have their punk avatar, and maybe they'd have the hash masks in, just to show off or in their house or whatever. Whereas with apes, it was just this, yeah, just this perfect storm where it just hit at the right time. People on Twitter were using them as avatars. There were so many new people coming into the space, and it just really resonated. Um, yeah.
Do you have some takes which are a little bit controversial, or
Hmm.
where do you have some projects that really didn't resonate with you that you kind of like are hating on a little bit,
Hmm.
low key hating on?
I mean, generally no, but yeah, I'll say that there is one that I really dislike or has left a sour taste in my mouth, and that's Art Vitars. So they're a project that launched. They were sort of before the Bored Ape Yacht Club, and it was the first project that I was pretty excited about getting ready to mint. And the concept was essentially they got, I think, 50 or 60 artists to create different components, and then they would generate a unique avatar based on randomization. And when you minted, you get one of these. And they had some really big name artists. This concept sounded cool, and yeah, I was excited for it as an avatar project. And they had a couple problems, but one was that they priced it on basically a ramp. So they had 20,000, which is a lot of supply, and they said the first 5,000 will be priced at zero point 0.2, and then the next 5,000 at 0.4, and then 0.6, and then 0.8. And this sort of price ramp has proven not to work. Everyone hates it, basically. I mean, if you get in at the first 5,000, great, you get in at the cheapest price, but then who wants to pay double that just because they're a little bit later? They don't get anything else or different or better. So essentially, what happened was they sold out the first 5,000, and then sales stalled, and maybe they sold out 6,000 in total out of 20. And the project kind of faltered and didn't really take off. And anytime a project doesn't sell out, there's sort of a stigma behind it, and it doesn't seem good, and doesn't mean it can't be successful. But yeah, so that was like a small strike. But the thing that really put a sour taste in my mouth is that sometime around then they were having a vote on what they wanted to do with the rest of the mints. Were they going to release them at a lower cost, or were they going to have an auction or give them away? I can't remember the details, but they had this thing where they were like, let's have a community
Hmm.
vote. And I was in the Discord, and I just asked questions, something along lines of can the vote be on chain, or how do we know that this vote is accurate, or like where are the votes being tallied? Like, is the community I just wanted to know like where the vote was taking place essentially, and how we could be sure that they were going to follow. And they just banned me from from the Discord for asking a question.
Oh no.
And then yeah, and then so I went on Twitter and I wrote this Twitter thread about it, and it got a little bit of attention, but I had like 100 followers then, and no one really cared. And yeah, I mean, and like the guy behind the project banned me on Twitter, and yeah, they just didn't want to listen to feedback, and I think the project has struggled ever since then for many reasons. But it's a shame because there were a lot of great artists, and I really wanted to support the project, and no, I ended up selling, and I haven't really looked back. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it's about as close to a controversial take as I can get. Yeah,
Okay. No, that's interesting. Yeah.
yeah.
Have to look that project up. And
Yeah, it was sort of before the Bored Ape Yacht Club came along and just sort of started this new era of projects.
and yeah, you also mentioned it, and I think you're quite open on Twitter about, like the ups and downs of obviously this lifestyle and the mental tolls it also can have on you,
Mm-hmm.
or on mental health. Because I mean, it's relentlessly fast.
Yeah.
Every other day there's a new project. There's FOMO. There's uh, even just like manually handling, waiting for the right time to mint, and then kind of like going on MetaMask and
Hmm.
doing all the stuff. And I had experiences where it just doesn't work and you get mad.
Mm-hmm.
Can you share what do you do to stay mentally stable in this high pressure environment, or just paint a picture what it is like to be an NFT trader, or you were a trader, and
Hmm.
you also alluded that now you're changing a little bit your strategy.
Yeah, well, I'm trying not to do it as much now. I'm not doing as much now just because it is exhausting, and it is difficult to do for, because if you really want to do it well, you kind of have to be online 16 hours a day all the time, because if you're not, you'll miss opportunities. Sometimes, often, the best opportunities, you just hear about a project 3 minutes before it mints out, and you have to run to your PC and mint a thing, and you have to make last minute, very like quick decisions based on very little information. Oh, is this a good project? Should I mint it? Is there enough demand? Am I going to be able to flip it? Am I not? Do I like it long term? And then sometimes you decide not to mint, and it goes on to moon lots. And sometimes you mint, and then it just tanks, and you realize, well, I shouldn't have FOMOed in. And then there's a lot of regret and a lot of FOMO, and what could have been, and things like that. When you're dealing with significant amounts of money that you could have made, or that you did make, or that you lost or could have lost, it can be difficult to deal with on a mental scale. And I think I'm fortunate in that, coming from playing poker professionally for 15 years, the monetary swings never really affected me super significantly. I'm able to mostly disassociate myself from the swings, but even then, I still have days where either I lose a bunch of real money, or like implied money, and my portfolio goes down, or I see everyone on Twitter talking about a project they minted and has 50x, and I decided for one reason or another not to mint, or I didn't even know about, and it completely slipped me by. And you have to realize, oh well, I missed that one. And it's not easy to do, but I think experience helps. So obviously my background has helped me, and if you're new to the space, then more time spent in the space will probably help, and getting that experience, realizing that we are still so early, and there are so many opportunities everywhere. So even if you miss one, even if you missed a 50x or 100x, there'll always be another one. Like, maybe in 5 years time, I'll have to stop telling people that we're still early and that there's new opportunities. But I think for the foreseeable future, and for probably at least a few more years, that there's going to be so many new opportunities in this space. Like, we've got avatar projects now, we've got gaming NFTs starting to take off. I think the next 2 years are going to be big on gaming NFTs. And then if you look into the future, NFTs are going to infiltrate the real estate world, the medical world. Every industry is going to have some tie back to NFTs, being able to have this provenance and proof and blockchain record of anything really is valuable. And yeah, if you're in the space now and you just keep a level head, and just don't lose all your money on one risky trade or one risky buy, and you try and invest here and there and grow your bankroll and portfolio, or even if you do none of that and you just sit back and you just learn and see what's happening and do some research. And you have a normal job and you just wait for an opportunity that is good, or you build an opportunity, you create something. I think that realizing there's infinite opportunities is really helpful. But yeah, ultimately, I think taking breaks is good. Taking time off, like I'm going on vacation in a couple of days, and I'm basically trying to completely disconnect. Which we'll see how I go, but hopefully, yeah, I think I need it to recharge my batteries and just to sort of get a grip on reality again. Because being in the NFT space so much, you just lose all semblance of what's really going on in the world and what's really important in life. And yeah, take breaks and yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Exercise, eat well, sleep well, all those normal things obviously help as well. But yeah.
Yeah. Since you have seen so many projects, so many NFT projects, and you really kind of like developed a feel for the market and what works, what doesn't work. If you were to launch an NFT project, or for anybody out there maybe listening, wanting to launch an NFT project, what would be your tips for them? Or what would you do to run a successful NFT project?
I think probably the biggest piece of advice I give most projects these days, because a lot of people come to me for advice. Obviously, I don't know what projects are going to be successful and what aren't, because a lot of things are outside of anyone's control. It's just the right market loving it, the right people on Twitter talking about it, etc. But I think keeping things simple, I think, is really important. I think a lot of projects now trying to do too much. They have this elaborate roadmap. They complicate things with burning mechanisms and deflationary tokens, and they have you can stake your NFT, or you can. I mean, yeah, it's cool to see them trying new things, and it opens the possibilities for what's capable. But I think generally, if a project is just simple, it's more likely to be successful. And yeah, just find something that you're really good at and do that. And yeah, I mean, it really is hard to know what's going to work and what's not with the market these days. There's so many new projects, like literally dozens a day being launched. Most of them are going to fail. It's just like realize that if you're trying to launch an NFT project now, you need to be special, you need to be different, you need to be simple, you need to be easy to understand, easy to market, and easy just yeah. I don't envy anyone trying to launch an NFT project right now, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
And building a community seems to be such an important
Yeah,
piece of the puzzle.
community is huge. Yeah, having active mods in Discord, having a good social media presence on Twitter, and reaching out and having giveaways and promotions and doing cool things like that. They're all useful and beneficial and helpful. But you can do all of that, and you can still be not successful just for whatever reasons.
And a similar question, but this time more targeted for people who might be building software tools. You are in a special situation that you have to manage hundreds of NFTs. You are using tools that are just a couple of years old, websites that are kind of new. I guess OpenSea is probably the biggest one, MetaMask. What is a tool that you wish would exist that would make your life easier? What is the most annoying thing when you have to handle buying, selling, or managing an NFT portfolio?
If someone can create a tool where it can track just track every purchase and sale and tell me how much tax I have to pay, I think everyone in the world would love that. Because yeah, we're all in the NFT space dreading conversations with our accountants. I have two actually that I have to get back to this week, just because it's so messy and difficult, and trying to track it manually is a nightmare. I think people are working on this software that we can hopefully in a few months put our Ethereum address in, and it'll calculate everything and figure it out. But there are other less boring tools than tax that people are working on. A cool one is you put in your wallet address, and it collects every NFT you have and tells you the portfolio value of it based on the floor price of each NFT. Being able to see the floor price of projects and like chart it and graphed over time, that would be cool to see. I know that there are multiple teams and platforms working on these projects, so I think in the next several months we'll see many more of them come to market than there already are. Yeah, but the tax one, I think everyone in the NFT space really wants that.
That's not just a German thing, the taxes, because I know they're quite anal about that.
Yeah, no,
The
it's not just
Germans.
German. I mean, it's Australian, and like, yeah, my tax situation is especially tricky because of that. But no, I mean, I have friends in America who want something like that as well. I have friends everywhere who want just an easy way to do it. I mean, no one wants to think about
Mhm.
taxes and NFTs, but it's it's an important thing to think about. We're all playing with Ethereum, and it almost seems like play money online, buying and selling. But at the end of the day, if you make significant money and you want to convert it into house or whatever you want to
Mhm.
buy, you need to withdraw it and pay tax on it, and yeah, all that.
Cool. Yeah, thank you so much, Roy, for your time. I think it's a good moment now to plug your newsletter. Well, plugging is the wrong word. You're much bigger than I am.
Well, something I still think we use plug. Sure. My newsletter, I only write about NFTs. I try and write a new letter once a week, roughly. Sometimes it's a little more, sometimes a little less. It's called Letters from a Zeneca, and the address is zeneca33.substack.com. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely the biggest thing I want to plug. Obviously, I have my Twitter account and other things going on, but yeah, I will release a letter roughly a week, and yeah, come read it if you are interested in the space.
And of course, the podcast, the Two Bored
Ah,
Apes podcast.
yes, so me and my friend started our own podcast about 3 weeks ago. Well, we've been working on it for a couple of months, but it launched 3 weeks ago. We have the third episode coming out tonight. Yeah, twobouredapes.com is where it is. It's just yeah, me and him. We've been friends for 15 years. He was a professional poker player too. We love talking about NFTs, and we had talked about doing a podcast for many years, but we didn't really have a good topic or subject matter until now. And yeah, it's just us talking about what's happened in the week, and uh, breaking things down, I guess.
No, it's really cool. I listened to both episodes today. It was really fascinating. Thank
Yeah,
you so
it's
much,
it's a
Roy.
really crazy world. Like, if you don't understand NFTs, and even if you do, it can be hard to follow. Like, I had
Mhm.
my parents listen to it, and I'm sure that they had no idea what we're talking about, like apes, monkeys.
Mhm.
What are these
No,
traits? And yeah, but if you're
that's the
interested in
sad part.
NFTs, yeah,
I understand basically everything you're saying. It's just like I don't have the skin in the game with
yeah,
those
yeah.
NFTs. I'm just like
Yet,
kicking myself. Yes, that's
still
true.
early. Yeah.
True, true. Hey, thank you so much.
La música de luz.
If you enjoyed the episode, please make sure to leave a review. It really helps other people finding the show. I appreciate it a lot. Also, shout out, this amazing beat is from Luke, written LUKZ Beats. You can find his beats on YouTube. He's a really nice guy and let me use this beat. Yeah, enjoy. I'll let the beat run for a moment, enjoy, and then see you next time. Welcome to defire.